So they don't get as big of a viral load, and so their immune system has more time to kick in and save their life. So if you're hanging out in a place with malaria, you want the sickle cell gene, but just one copy. Everybody have a text?
Oh, I didn't copy that.
Well, you get one copy from your dad, and from your mom you get a donut.
You need to pay attention.
So it can be the other way around. You can have one characteristic that's influenced by many genes. How many of you have seen the videos with the dominoes where you have like a big field of dominoes and they choreograph them? So this would be a case where like you have several starting points. You have like 5 people at the start, and they each flick a domino, they each flick a different gene to start, and then all gather together in the big finish that all goes to the middle of the table and land at the same time, sort of thing. And one case, and this is known as polygenic inheritance. This word is easier to piece apart. Poly means many, like a polygon has many sides. And genic is genes, so many genes, one trait. And one example of a polygenic trait is skin color. Since we were talking about segregation earlier, around the time when segregation ended, some of those states were forced by the Supreme Court to legalize the marriage of people of different races. They were legal for a while.
Wait, why does...
It was illegal. There were still plenty of people who had children, even though they weren't allowed to marry, but yeah.
So if poly means many, why do we say Polynesian?
Many islands, I believe.
Oh, okay. Oh, for many
Anyone confirm
islands?
that for me?
Yeah, like Tonga, Samoa.
Yeah. Now, I can't guarantee that Nesians actually means island. So anyway, by the way, this is a somewhat simplified version of how skin pigment works. It's at least, we know there's at least 3 genes involved with making skin pigment. So say you have a very fair-skinned parent who has all recessive genes, makes very little skin pigment, and you have a very dark-skinned parent where every possible gene makes pigment. If they have children, all their children will end up with a nice medium tan. Okay, and very similar skin color. But then, if you have a child of mixed parents and they, for whatever reason, because similar background, whatever, marry another person who's a child of mixed parents, I'm not saying they're siblings, it doesn't have to be that. Well, that does happen in the South. Alright, you get 2 people of mixed parentage and they have kids. Then you need a proper Punnett square, and you need a 8 by 8 Punnett square to show the 3 traits. I will make you make one of these. We are going to be doing 2 traits, which you can do with a 4 by 4 Punnett square. Although I will show you an easier way to do that. So this is all the possibilities for the grandkids of those mixed marriages. Okay? They could have a grandkid whose skin is as fair as the fair-skinned grandparent, or a grandkid with skin as dark as the dark-skinned grandparent. But then they also have at least 62 combinations of colorations in between. Okay? Anybody know a family where brothers and sisters are kind of like that? You have some of the brothers have much darker skin than... Yeah. So all that means is your parents are heterozygous. They have a different mix depending on which way you flip the coin. Some of your siblings end up with darker or lighter skin, producing more pigment.
That looks so real. Do it.
And then the question is, say the coins are flipped and you end up with not as much skin pigment as you want. Is there any way to fix that? Your skin is lighter than you want it to be.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Fake tan.
Fake tan, or you can go out in the sun.
Huh?
Okay, so not all genes are on at all times. So those of us who are pigment deprived, Trevor and I, at least, we do have genes in our skin cells that when exposed to the sun will produce extra pigment and give us a tan. Okay, so we don't worry. Okay, whereas people who look like they're always tanned and never have to go to a tanning booth, they have genes that are always on producing pigment. Some other factors that can do that sort of thing, diet. Can anybody think of a trait that diet could affect?
Your weight.
Weight, sure. So you might have a gene that makes you prone to being overweight.
Me.
But if you only eat celery for your entire life, you're probably not going to become giant. Whereas if you eat McDonald's every day and you have and also have a gene for weight, then the genes involved in making you bigger. Stress similarly, stress can trigger genes for early baldness, or something that happens to most presidents if they start out young. Anybody knows what's happened to Obama's hair?
It fell out.
It's great.
Most presidents, even if they start on the young side, Kennedy got killed, but besides him.
Oh, from all the stress?
Most presidents,
Because of
their hair
stress.
gets much grayer over the time of their presidency because it's a very stressful job.
Is it true that
And
the...
stress can
What?
speed up the graying of hairs.
Is it true that the presidents get barely any
There are a lot of
sleep?
gray-haired lawyers out there too. Depends on what type of lawyer.
Is it true that the president gets barely any sleep?
Barely any sleep? I don't know.
That's not like
What's the president?
barely any sleep.
There's always emergencies, right?
Oh my god. I'm gonna be the next president of
Also,
the
this
United
applies
States.
to genes that are involved with disease.
How
Quiet,
do you become the
please.
president? Like, do you just run?
So last spring I set in a jar of my spit to get my DNA analyzed, and my wife did the same. And the original reason why we did that, besides me being a biology teacher and being curious, is that my wife's mother had found out she had breast cancer.
Oh, cool.
Okay? And which, as of a few weeks ago, she's free and clear of this chemo and surgery.
Oh, okay, good.
But there is a gene which, if you have it, you have a much higher risk of breast cancer. So my wife and I, we want to know if we had that gene. Her mother had breast cancer, so maybe we did. Men get breast cancer. Not quite as much.
You got breast
Yes.
Well, he can get breast
Or
cancer
more
because his
specifically,
wife's
if
mom
I had that
had
gene
breast
passed on to
cancer.
my daughters, then they would be higher.
Wait, Mr. Adicott, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
You said her mom had breast cancer,
Right.
but why'd you?
So,
But then you said,
and the thing is, her mom has breast cancer, so if she had a gene for it, my wife could have also had that gene. But if I don't have the gene at all, then our daughters are safe. If I have at least one copy of the gene that increases breast cancer risk and pass it on to our daughters,
So how would you
then our
get?
daughters are higher risk of breast cancer.
oh, because at first you were like,
But, so we didn't have that gene, but even if we did, we could live our entire lives without ever getting cancer.
but is there like a 50%
Okay, depends on
chance?
diet. Okay. Similarly, you can have a gene for being tall, but if your diet every day was only Doritos, how do you think that would go?
You would be bad. You're never
You would
gonna
not end up
grow.
as tall as you should be. So you don't have good nutrition, you're not getting calcium for your bones.
That's me.
So,
What if you eat junk food, but you also eat like a lot of fruits? How does that work?
there's a movie called Super Size Me where the guy eats something from McDonald's. That doesn't go well. Yes,
Wait, so you
So
did
anyway.
that part in slow motion?
If somebody asks you which is more
Is this a long
important,
vlog? Is this gonna be your
the
whole
genes
vlog?
or the environmental
No, we're gonna
factors,
cut some out.
it's kind of like asking what's more important to the area of a rectangle, the height or the width.
You
Yeah?
should like zoom in on
Width?
some parts. I did some.
You have to have both. Okay, you can have a super tall structure, but if it's only a fraction of a millimeter wide, it doesn't have much area, right? Yeah, or it could be really wide and only a fraction of a millimeter tall, it doesn't have a lot of area. You need both genes and environment to get your phenotypes, to get your traits. So you need your height gene and you need to eat a nice balanced diet as you grow tall and be a good basketball player. A few other genes for muscles and things like that, as well as actually practicing.